This is the Scenario Radio Show, real talk with a playlist.
We're back with the Scenario Radio Show. While you have a moment, check us out on our website, scenarioradioshow.com. And you can check out our Black Music Month music series on our website. From there, you can check out all of our social media platforms, and that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can check out our YouTube, where you can see some of our outtakes and hear today's playlist from 1991 on Spotify. That's at the scenarioradioshow.com on all Instagram social media handles. Now back to you, Van.
Right now, we want to chat with friends of the show, author Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac Addae, about his new book, Black Boy Fly. All right, so during the time I've known you to be a jack of many trades, somebody who gives who gives a lot of insight in areas of business, Black entrepreneurship, just empowerment in a lot of different ways. Didn't know that you were an author. Did you know you were an author?
You know what? I always had this book in me, but I just wasn't ever in a position to really get it out. And I'll give you a little bit of context since we're talking about music. I got the title of this book in my sleep one night or in the shower. You know how ideas just randomly come to you. Mm-hmm. But it was from Kendrick Lamar, his song Black Boy Fly. And that song talks about young Black men in Compton making it, basically getting toward their dreams. And then also my favorite author is Richard Wright. And Richard Wright has a book called Black Boy. And that whole concept just rolled into the book. And so that's the energy behind it. But it just came to me one day in September 2016 that when I am ready to tell my story of my life's journey, that's what I'm going to call it. And I've stuck with that title since then.
So I remember a quote from Coming to America where Eddie Murphy says, one does not fly. I think it's Nietzsche. One does not fly into flying. So how long has this book been in the making? And tell us about that journey along the way as you're putting your book together.
Yeah, sure. The book has been years in the making, and the book is essentially me opening up what I write in my journal and sharing it with the world, but specifically from a perspective of me being Black and Ghanaian and what that struggle has been like or what that journey has been like for me. So we hear a lot about immigrant stories today, but typically we're talking about Latin Americans or Hispanic Americans. We don't really hear a lot about African immigrant stories beyond what was portrayed in Coming to America in the sequel or what the Black Panther film portrayed. You don't really hear much about what that experience is like. And in my life, I've been through some things, some ups and some downs, and I've experienced those things while being Black, but also while being Ghanaian. So the book is going to be a deeper dive into my journey towards finding my purpose, but also doing that while trying to reconcile being Black and being Ghanaian at the same time.
Okay, you mentioned like Coming to America,
Yep.
Black Panther, and more recently. Growing up, being the child of immigrants, African immigrants in a culture in America that, to be perfectly honest, didn't really know a lot about African cultures, and a lot of times leaned into as Americans, we have often leaned into caricature of African culture and stereotypes and things of that nature. How was that? How did that affect you growing up?
Man, I'll be honest with you. My childhood was rough, not from anything that happened at home, but just me being me in the Black community and people trying to really make sense of who I was. So I grew up in Arkansas primarily. I finished high school in Mississippi. So I'm in the deep South. I'm embedded in Black communities, but people see me, they see my name, and they interact with my family, and they know, okay, he's not Black. And so I immediately, once people discovered that, would get bombarded with all the stereotypes that existed within the Black community of Africa. I dealt with that from second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. I don't think it was really until about the 9th or 10th grade that the tide started to turn and our community started to really want to better understand African culture beyond what we saw on TV. So I was teased a lot growing up, right? African booty scratcher is a chapter that I'm in my book, and I'm going to talk about it because that was a label that was thrown my way quite often from Black people who didn't understand anything about Africa beyond what they saw on TV, and we know what was being portrayed then. So I, when I was younger, shied away from my Ghanaian ancestry quite a bit as a way to find a safe space, right? So if people didn't know that I was African, I didn't have to deal with all the stuff that came with it. And that was cool. But when I was 9, I went to Ghana for the first time. And it helped me understand who I am and to be comfortable with my culture. And when I came back, it was more about, I'm going to defend who I am now. I'm not going to shy away from it. It's just you guys' fault that you don't understand or that you don't get it. But the childhood piece was interesting. And you got to think about it. In the 80s and in the 90s, we had immigrants in America from Asia, from South America, from other continents, and nobody really cared about being an immigrant from those places in the Black community. But if you were an African immigrant or from that kind of family, there was just a lot of tension and a lot of energy that you had to absorb and process just by being Black. So that made my childhood really interesting. And I'll just say this to kind of sum it up. At home, everything reflected Ghana. My parents, Ghanaian, food, music, conversations, social activities with other African families or other Ghanaian families. That was my life. But when I left the house and I went to school and I was in the community, it was Black. Everything was Black. And so I was always feeling like a stranger in both worlds because I didn't really understand what it meant to be Ghanaian because I was born here.
Yeah.
But because my family isn't, the traditional Black family, I'm hanging with these kids, but I don't really understand what they deal with, what they experience, what that struggle is like. So I felt like I was on an island of my own, just trying to find my way. That was my childhood.
So I hear a lot about finding your purpose and your African history and so
Yep.
what is it that you really want to leave with the readers when you're telling your story? What is it that you want the readers to gain from it going forward?
You know what? That's a great question, KB. What I would say is anybody who picks up the book and reads it, when they're done, they'll understand what it's like to be in someone else's shoes that's likely not like them. Because again, there's not much documented. There's not much that you can go out and read about the Black/African experience and the intersection of those two. But also, I think the underlying theme is going to be you can overcome anything, because throughout the book, I'm going to talk about what my struggles were in a candid way and how I was able to fight those battles and get to a place where I felt as though I was flying, because I always knew I could fly. My parents told me that when I was young, but I had a lot of things that I went through in life that really kept me from hitting those heights. So those are the two things, some insight into what it looks like to be bicultural, particularly from an African perspective, and then also what it looks like to not quit as it relates to going after your dreams.
This is the Scenario Radio Show. Real talk with a playlist.
That's the scenario.